Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge and appreciate the presence of Indonesian Ambassador to the United Arab Emirates, Your Excellency, Mr. Husin Bagis. Thank you very much for your continued support. Ladies and gentlemen, our final project showcase for Indonesia PPP Day is Transition to Net Zero, implementing ESG in airport sector infrastructure investment. To deliver on the three pillars of action: people, planet, prosperity, a transition towards renewable energies, a green recovery practice is required. This is also needed to enhance the opportunity to achieve net zero carbon targets. This session will explore how Indonesia's commitment to accelerate green and sustainable PPP projects implementation in transportation infrastructure sector, particularly airport. We will be heading to our moderator in Dubai, Ibu Tanti Hidayati, Deputy Director of Business Indonesia Infrastructure Guarantee Fund, IIGF. Bu Tanti.
Yeah. Thank you, Aline. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, let me greet Bapak Husin Bagis as an Indonesian ambassador for United Arab Emirates. And then good afternoon also to panelists and discussant today. All participants both in this venue right now and also through online. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to the project showcase session of Indonesia Public-Private Partnership or PPP Day 2022. In this session, we are going to have a comprehensive discussion on the ESG implementation in airport sector infrastructure investment. And before heading to main session, let me introduce you our speakers today. As panelists, we have Ms. Rizka Anandita Ramses, Vice President of Business Initiation of Indonesia Infrastructure Guarantee Fund, IIGF, or in Indonesia is PT Penjaminan Infrastruktur Indonesia Persero. And as discussant, here with us now, Mr. Otto Ardianto from Indonesia Ministry of Transport. Good afternoon, Mr. Otto. And who joined online is Ms. Taufik Wahab from the Global Infrastructure Facility, GIF. Good afternoon, Taufik Wahab. And Ms. Wai Leng Leong, Managing Director and Head of Asia Pacific, CDPQ Infra. And the last is Mr. William Dux from the Go Train Management Agency. Good afternoon, you all. Okay, this is because of this is the last session of all our activity today. So we have a short period of time. So we are going to start the discussion forum with presentation from the panelists. Okay, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as to start the discussion, let us hear the project overview that will be delivered by our panelists today. Ms. Rizka, the floor is yours, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I would say good afternoon to Indonesia Ambassador of UAE, Bapak Husin. Thanks for staying with us today, Bapak, and also fellow panelists and distinguished guests. I would like to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you for the opportunity given to us to showcase the project, the last project of the day, which is from the transport sector, Singkawang Airport. And if I may ask for the slides to be presented. Okay. I would start with a little bit of overview of the project itself. The project for Singkawang Airport is located in the city of Singkawang in West Kalimantan. It's actually approximately 153 kilometers from the provincial capital of Pontianak City. Singkawang is known for its harmonious and diverse community consisting of three major culture known as Tidayu, or we call it Tionghoa, Dayak, and Melayu or Malay. So actually this is a melting pot right in the West Kalimantan area which has a lot of potential for the uniqueness and cultural and religious tourism for that specific area can offer to the market. And also, towards the spirit of becoming the tourism special economic zone, Singkawang City now has various investment opportunities, such as Industry 4.0, logistic, gas depot, aquaculture and agriculture, and also high-end residential area, which is actually plotted in their regional development plan. So once completed, this project, this airport project, will activate the economic growth and also help minimize travel time from Pontianak to Singkawang, because currently people usually go to Kalimantan, and to Pontianak to go to Singkawang, and then they have to go through a road, making sure that they arrive in Singkawang for about like approximately 3 to 4 hours ride to Singkawang. So this project, supported by Ministry of Finance, with the development of final business case and also the assistance for transaction, being assisted by IGF, which is us, a specialist entity established by Ministry of Finance to guarantee major project, not just PPP, but other types of projects as well, and also assist in PPP preparation and transaction, which is one of the project is Singkawang Airport. If we may go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is just a brief look out of the location for the project itself. The Singkawang project, Singkawang Airport is located nearly about 15 to 16 kilometers from the center of Singkawang, and it also has already a power plant in place there for the utilities, and also a water supply reservoir. Oh, sorry. Water supply reservoir near the area. And if we may go, the land acquisition for this project has already been done. The resettlement action plan also already been done. So LARAP, we call it in Indonesia, is actually being done by the city of government of Singkawang itself, by way of grant from the people of Singkawang by the owners, and is now under the Ministry of Transportation, as it is granted to the state government by the city of Singkawang. So I know that that is one of the concerns for many projects in Indonesia regarding land acquisition. That's why for this project, specific project, with enormous support by the city of Singkawang and also the state government, the land acquisition has already been done before the project even began. Can we go to the next slide, please? So as you can see here, for the project itself, the project owner, with the support of the city government, but actually the project owner, because this is a state-owned project, so the GCA is the Director General of Civil Aviation in the Ministry of Transportation, Indonesia. It is a solicited PPP project, so it is initiated by the government. And the scope of work for this specific PPP partnership is DBFOMT, with user charge, with revenue from aeronautical and non-aeronautical revenue stream to be the potential for the investors. And the service area coverage would be the Singkawang City and its surrounding, which is known as Singbebas. We like abbreviation here in Indonesia, and it's actually Singbebas means Singkawang, Bengkayang, and also Sambas. These are three major industrial and also tourism areas in West Kalimantan. The contract period is 33 years, including 3 years of construction period. So there is, for this project, this specific project, The government is targeting the operational stages in 2023, which means with the potential government scope for early operation, the support from the government is needed. So that's why we have already pointed here some of the support the government would ensure the commitment to conduct operation in 2023 includes construction of part of the airside, a runway of 1,600 times 30 meters, and also including all supporting facilities by the government of Indonesia. And also the development of access road to and from airport by city government of Singkawang, and also development of supporting utilities by the city of Singkawang has also been prepared. So actually, this is a great business opportunities we see for the private sector investors, developers, airport operators, and also financiers. As I think this is one of the projects that the government is showing its commitment to support these types of project in Indonesia. So the project status right now, the final business case is being finalized by IGF, by us. Assisting the Ministry of Transportation, and it will be finalized within this year as well. So we can go to the next slide, please. So this is the project layout and the scope of the GCA and PPP component. I don't want to bore you guys with all the details, but if you can see here, the green part, the blue parts are actually the government component or GCA component, which is prepared to be done by 2023. The end of 2023, all the blue parts would be done, and so operational for minimum for ATR 74 would be then provided. After that, we know that in parallel, the PPP co is being the transaction for the PPP is being conducted as well. So in parallel, so that's why there will be time where the operational will be in the government side from 2023 throughout 2026. Given 3 years for the PPP code to construct the first phase of this airport project. So I think that's the main thing about the layout and scope for the PPP and also GCA components in this project. After 2026, when the PPP co already been appointed, they already done the construction for the first phase of the project in their part, then the government would hand over the operational side to the PPP co. So by then, it would be 2,500 meters in runway length, and it would cater to about 800,000 passengers per annum, and with a terminal of about 1,200 square meters for the first phase. And this is actually done by an extensive traffic forecasting and also real demand survey with the supply and demand side given to the market itself, and also the airlines involved in the traffic, air traffic in Indonesia. So I think we can go to the next slide. So this is the project cost structure, and please note that this is based on the draft FPC and will further be analyzed for the final business case. Because there are components by the government that would be taken into point in this finalized FBC. So the estimated total project cost would be about $170 million, and the financial feasibility, economic ERR, of 14%, with the debt to equity ratio of 70-30, and potential government support on the PPP side of the project, which is to continue on with the government part, is for government guarantee by us as well as IGF, and also viability gap funding by the Ministry of Finance. So we can see here that this project is being taken care of by a lot of stakeholders in Indonesia. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the project structure, and also its indicative timeline. If you can see here, sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses, so I need to see from here as well. But if you can see here, the GCA would have an agreement with the PPP company, who then will provide the equity and loan for the project as such. In PPP projects, other PPP projects. And then also we can see here that there will be a guarantee by IGF, potential guarantee by IGF on tariff, and also termination. That's the main reason, I mean, like the main risks that usually are guaranteed by us. And also there would be airport service users to then provide the revenues for the PPP code. Okay, this is the indicative timeline, which will be finalized in the final FBC, and because of the operational of 2023. So should there be any changes, we will definitely be contacting all the market for all these changes, because basically this project has already done the market sounding as well in the OBC stages. So we're going to do another market sounding to finalize before finalizing the FBC, to see the appetite of the market and see whether or not there are any inputs in order for the project to be more bankable and attractive. I think that's
Thank you,
now.
Mr. Rizka. Sorry, I have to hold on that, for a minute. Thank you for the very clear information you shared to us just now. And before continuing your presentation, I see from your points, it is stated that Singkawang Airport is now being prepared as a PPP project. And in regards to that, Indonesian government plans to construct partial part of the airport airside and also landside to ensure operation by government at the end of 2023. In which this shows that the Indonesia Ministry of Transportation commits to support the completion and attractiveness of the project. So moving on to the next angle, let us hear from our first discussion today from Indonesia Ministry of Transportation, Mr. Otto Ardianto. Can you give us brief explanation, Pak, for confirming the plan, the latest update on budget preparation, and also progress on partial construction, and operating the airport by 2023, and for making it a brownfield project in time of the PPP company conduct the operation then? Please brief us the explanation, Pak Otto.
Thank you, Bu Tanti. His Excellency, Ambassador, and distinguished speakers and also audience. First of all, on behalf of Ministry of Transport, I would like to say thanks to Ministry of Finance, to IGF, SMI to involve us in this PPP day. I would like to start with emphasizing that it is the government responsibility to provide public transport infrastructures and services. This is on MOT side. This is responsible on MOT side to improve the connectivity among the region in Indonesia and also increase the mobility of the people. Serving 270 million population across the 70,000 islands, government of Indonesia facing a challenging budget. Therefore, for the last 4 or 5 years, MOT is just started with PPP, compared to public works, maybe already advanced. We already only started in last 4-5 years, of course, with the support and guidance from the Ministry of Finance. We have been inviting private sectors to be involved in the development of infrastructures in Indonesia. And Singkawang, in this case, is our second PPP project in airports. We do have others PPP or ZP transactions in the seaport side and also in the railways. So we are inviting the private sector because we understand that for the since last year, the environment of investment in Indonesia is becoming more investor friendly. However, when it comes to rate of returns in the infrastructure projects, most of our potential investors see that investing in the infrastructures, the margin is relatively marginal. Therefore, the MOT and MIFF has regulation in place to give support, providing support to the private sectors in terms of fiscal support and non-fiscal support so that the project is more feasible, financially viable. So again, we do have the support for this project. For Singkawang project, as Bu Rizka already mentioned, that's actually the IRR 40% is already because of the support for fiscal support from the governments. In Singkawang project, the fiscal support from the MOF in form of PGF and also from the MOT in form of the development or in construction of major infrastructures or infrastructure of the airports in the land side and air side. This already mentioned by Bu Rizka with for the air side about 1600 runway, which the ultimate length is 2500. So about 60% is going to be provided by the government. Beside the air side, beside the runway, the MOT also will provide the apron and also taxiway. In the land side, we're going to build the first stage of the terminal. So this is part of the fiscal support from the governments. Besides the fiscal support, we also provide the non-fiscal support. This fiscal and non-fiscal support, the objective is to make the project is more attractive to the investors. In form of the non-fiscal support, well, the project, this airport is planned to be commissioned by end of 2023. In the beginning of 2024, it will be operated by the governments. Why governments? MOT right now is operating more than 100 airports across the nations. So we really understand that it's going to be challenging for the private sector to operate such airport, the greenfield airport, in the first years, in the first, second years, because the rule of thumb of our business airport in Indonesia, when the traffic is less than 500,000, it's going to be difficult or it's going to be challenging for the private sector. So it's going to be operated by the government. By operating by the government, the MOT can apply the PSC, the passenger service charge, as minimum as possible, so that the private sector, the public can shift their mode of transportation from land transportation to air transportation. So once the traffic reach the economic of scale, it's going to be operated or transferred to the PPP co, so that the operating expense will be much lesser because and the revenues already reach the economic scale. So by these two fiscal supports, it shows that the commitment of the government MOT. In the fiscal support, in 2020, we already done, Bu Rizka already mentioned that we already secured the land, and MOT already spent budget for the earthwork, and hopefully by this year the earthwork already will be completed. And in 2022, we also allocated budgets for the support for the starting the development or construction of the runway. So again, it shows that the commitment from the MOF and also from the MOT, and we believe that this project through the PPP scheme can be successfully done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well noted, Mr. Otto. Thank you for your brief explanation. Okay, then I would like to hear again from our panelists, Ms. Rizka, to continue with how Singkawang Airport PPP project is being prepared to promote sustainable and resilient infrastructure. Okay, Ms. Rizka, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ibu Tanti. If you may go to the slides, the next slides that I've already prepared, please. So in implementing sustainable and resilient infrastructure, we use several references for this project itself. For example, the existing regulations and policies in Indonesia, and also the G20 principle for quality infrastructure, including the GI Hub output specification for quality infrastructure, and also QII principles, and also ESG compliance framework for operations. Also, of course, the green project requirements regarding the airport building. So if we can go to the next slide, this is just some of the regulations, the major regulations that we use when developing the preparation for this project. So if you can see here, government of Indonesia actually is quite ready to do a green type of infrastructure, and also complies to the ESG. For example, for the government regulation number 33 on flight management, the development of environment and sustainability in the airport, it also determines the airworthiness of aircraft and also airport operations, and making sure it complies to the 3S1C, which is actually a quite important and significant factor for the Ministry of Finance of Indonesia. And then the other one is the Ministry of Transportation Regulation of number 54, 2017 on waste and also chemical substance management on airlines and also airport operation. So there are also controls for waste and chemical substance management required by the government for airport. Also, the Director General of Civil Aviation Regulation on guidelines for eco-airport implementation, on procedures, and also implementing for airport operation to manage and monitor the sustainability of airport environment, including the air quality, the energy it uses, the noise, the water, and such. Also, of course, we can't forget about the Ministry of Public Works and Housing Regulation number 21 on performance assessment of green building, which is actually also being used in the previous project in the previous section, which is the housing project. We also use it for the airport building in Singkawang Airport as well. There are technical standards for the preparation, technical planning, construction activity, utilization, and also demolition even for the green building. So it's quite comprehensive regulation by the Ministry of Public Works and Housing. And moving on from that, we also look at the Global Infra Hub project requirements to be prepared as the output specification for this project as well. So we know that the G20 focuses on quality infrastructure. So it actually emphasizes on operation to be done in such way that the project would be sustainable in the future, not just in the preparation stages, but also in the operational and also in monitoring and in maintenance phase. So that's why project requirements determined in the FBC studies will be set out as output specification for the transaction of this specific project. So the output specification would be provided as an information to the market in transaction phase, to make sure that the bidders are well informed and also will have the same vision as the government to provide sustainable infrastructure in the future. And they also know the level of service the government is aiming for regarding the development of construction up until the handback. So you can see here, I won't go into details, but we can see here in the table that actually the components that is being regarded in this project, even from the development or construction requirements up until the maintenance life cycle of the project and also handback requirements will be applied in the output specification of this project. And if you can go to the next slide, please. So other reference that we use is also quite familiar. I think you guys are quite familiar with the QII principle, quality infrastructure, used by also the G20 as well. So 6 QII principle, the airport is prepared and also has a mission to be one of the airports that implements all the QII principle effectively. We can see here, I can just choose one example. For example, integrating social consideration in infrastructure investment to give a social value to the local community through jobs, and also featuring local produce and arts and craft inside the airport building itself. So we will work closely with the city of Singkawang, government of the city of Singkawang, to make sure that we include the people of Singkawang in getting the benefits of this airport project. So if we can go to the next slide. Also, one of the significant factor of today's infrastructure project, and all projects for that matter, is ESG requirement. So if you can see here, there are actually a lot of frameworks that the PPP code can refer to in international level, which is the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, and also Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, and of course for the standards operating procedures, ISO, and also SGS assurance for ESG. So for ESG itself, the key consideration would include source of power, utilities that it used for the environment itself, and also, for example, we're trying to achieve a green plotting ratio to measure the amount of planting that can be put back on the land site after the clearing during the site preparation. So meaning we don't destroy we minimize destroying the nature as much as possible. And also for social value, as I mentioned before, we're gonna make sure that the local residents and people are involved in the project. And also for governance, it would be written in the commitment even before a signed contract by the government and the PPP code to ensure governance of the project itself.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rizka. Hold on to that, yeah. So of what you had already said, I would like to ask Ms. Taufik Wahab. Ms. Taufikwa, I have several questions about this. Firstly is how efficient it is to ensure sustainability and resilience of a project from early stages such as preparation. And secondly, are there any examples of successful implementation of G20 principles for quality infrastructure, which can be shared to us? And the third is, how do you think regulation can be made to ensure a balanced project which comply aspect of sustainable and resilient quality infrastructure, but on a level that is still attractive to the investors and financiers, especially in regards to the implementation of ESG and QII principle. Okay, Ms. Taufikwa, your time, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Taufika Haq of the Global Infrastructure Facility, which is housed within the World Bank, and we specialize in working with emerging market government clients and MDB partners in preparing bankable infrastructure projects. So infrastructure projects which will be able to attract commercial financing, PPPs, as well as working with state-owned enterprises, helping them raise funding. I'm sorry, are you hearing me?
Yes, Taufikwa.
Okay.
But you can speak louder if you don't mind. You can speak louder.
Sure, I will speak louder. So to your three questions, I think maybe if you allow me to mix them up a bit, I think the previous speaker, Ms. Rizka Ramzis, mentioned, just summarize what are the 6 QII principles, and where these have really taken a center stage with Japan promoting them. I think from an MDB perspective, these 6 principles have always been at the core of when we look at preparing projects. And in answer to your last question, which is, can we balance ESG requirements, QII requirements, and still meet investors' appetite? I think actually savvy investors and sound investors are looking at, especially in this infrastructure space, when we're looking at an airport, we're talking about a life anywhere between 30 to 50 runways can run, when they are well maintained, can be used for 80 years. These are very long-term investments. And the principles of QII is that you make the necessary studies and you make the necessary investments to ensure that your infrastructure projects will stand the test of time, of energy, of environmental changes, and of course will be in harmony not just with the environment but with the people, so social considerations, as well as being affordable, sustainable from a government's perspective, because you do want to ensure the longevity and the use of this asset for the long term. So investing in, and there are examples, unfortunately, we're talking about transport, we're talking about airports. There are quite a few examples of runways that get flooded, cannot be used, cracks that happen, airports. There are even examples of airports that are not used, and there is a very famous example in this region. So for us, from a multilateral development bank perspective, QII or ESG, those are really core to looking at an asset, not just in terms of its commercial. I mean, we don't only look at the design of an airport, but when we are looking at the design of the airport, we're looking at what ways to make that asset sustainable. And since we are talking about airports, I think there are a couple of ways, right? What are the energy sources? Renewable energy, if they can be used. I think in India has a great example of the Cochin airport, which is using 100% of renewable energy. Building the terminals, or using energy efficiency, reducing cost of energy and usage of energy. Looking at storage facilities, optimizing the layout inside the airport, but also outside the airport, can have significant impact on reductions of emissions by reducing the movements of aircraft. Access to the airport through public transportation, significant impact. I think Heathrow did a recent study that despite all of the public transportation connections at Heathrow, 33% of emissions at Heathrow can be reduced by creating better mass transit solutions. And then of course on the aircraft side, we hope that we will come to a day where biofuels, hydrogen, electric powered planes will become reality. So when we are looking at an airport or a port, we don't just look at what will be the traffic, who will be the clients, what will be the tariffs and rates, passenger rates that we can charge, but how can we design an asset which will be able to raise financing, but which will also be able to operate for the long durations that are needed. So, and I'm glad to see that we have somebody from CDPQ. So from an investor's perspective to speak, as I say, that this is no longer World Bank or NGOs promoting about ESG and sustainable infrastructure. I think we're looking at it from a smart money perspective also, because these are investments that are costly. You want to get them right the first time around and not try to be doing patch up. So in terms of some of the work that we are supporting, and I listened to the previous session also on the water project. We are looking at creating, we at the GIF Global Infrastructure Facility are part of this initiative called the Fast Infra Initiative. So it's the finance to accelerate to a sustainable transition. And under that Fast Infra Initiative, we have been spearheading together with Macquarie and HSBC the creation of a sustainable infrastructure label. And by that, what do we mean? We mean of looking at typically sustainable or green financing has happened at the financing stage. We want to bring the element of sustainability at the planning stage, when we are looking at creating an asset. We have looked at the various standards out there, not just MDB standards, but also EU taxonomy, TCDF, the various requirements that are there from regulators for investors when they are saying we're investing in sustainable infrastructure. We have looked across those and tried to bring some coherence and consistency of creating this label with a framework that starts off with the IFC's performance standards as a baseline, which, and if you're familiar with IFC performance standards, a lot of it has been picked up in the QII principles, QII principle 2, 3, 5, talk about IFC, and 4 also talk about those principles. So we have used the baseline of existing IFC performance standards. We have added on some additional features, including resilience and adaptation, which are elements that we can no longer afford to ignore. The idea of this label is that for planners, so governments or developers, to prepare and build their assets using that label requirements, so that investors on the other side, when they see an asset that carries the label, they get comfort and confidence that the label, that the asset has been prepared, taking sustainability into consideration. The ultimate objective of this label is really to bring efficiency, to make investors will still require due diligence, but there will be the required documents and information available for them to review, so that ultimately we can see some, I'll borrow from the green bond market, a greenium, so a translation of better pricing and access to more financing for those type of assets. And we have, as I mentioned, we have brought into the labels framework elements of the various standards that are required, so that from an investor's perspective, once you have invested in an asset that carries the label, you have gained confidence that you're going to be able to meet your various regulators' requirements pertaining to sustainability. So that's something that we have launched at COP26. We are in the process of testing the label, and we are very looking forward to setting up a secretariat which will really be rolling out the label and working with both on the supply side of the asset, so with government clients, with developers in getting the label out, as well as on the pool side, so from investors. getting investors to want to see assets with the label for their own, as I said, bringing better efficiency. So if I can come back to one of the other questions you asked me, which is, are there examples of successful implementation of G20 principles or for quality infrastructure? I think in Indonesia itself, there is a project which I believe was mentioned in the previous session. It's the Legok Nangka Waste Management Project that together, the GIF together with IFC and JICA, we are happy to be supporting in Bandung. And in the preparation of that project, we have been looking at it with the QII lens, which again, I was mentioning earlier, is very similar to the IFC ESG lens. So that's one project that we will be hopefully seeing the tendering by the end of this calendar year. And I know that investors are looking forward to this opportunity. And then other examples, there are quite a few. Just last week, there was the, in a very different region, in Uzbekistan, we just closed on a 1.2 gigawatt CCGT project, which was prepared with IFC and the GIF and the government of Uzbekistan. It has just been tendered and has been taken, a winner has been announced. It's EDF with Sojit, and that project has been prepared again with QII principles in mind, and has yielded a tariff which is very competitive. And the project itself is really critical to provide the base load that is needed in Uzbekistan, which is ramping up, which is bringing in over 8 gigawatts of solar power into the system. So that's a project we are very proud to have supported. I have many more examples, but I'm mindful of time. So I will stop here and happy to re-engage. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Taufik Wahab, for your very clear information. Yeah. Okay, back to Ms. Rizka again to continue with the last two reference. Please, Ms. Rizka.
Okay, thank you, Butanti. If you can go to the next slide, as Taufiqa mentioned before, that airport is actually pretty complicated regarding all the sustainable and resilient aspect that is that needs to be considered in that project. But we also see that one of the things that is quite comprehensive in Indonesia is the requirement for a green building with the Ministry of Public Works and Housing has its regulation on. And if you can see here, we know that the PPP project should comply to the local Green Building Council of Indonesia aspects, which is actually quite similar to the US rating criteria of LEED. And for some of the projects that already been done in Indonesia, it is actually quite implementable for an airport building to be to comply to these criteria in their building. And one example is that from the Semarang airport, it reached the rating criteria of gold level. We know that this actually will affect some of the costs the PPP needs to cover in the CapEx, but as already mentioned before in the previous session, in water, the impact to the CapEx burdened by the PPP is not really that major, not even close to 1% of the whole CapEx, but ultimately it would provide them with greater control in the expenditure for the operation stages and maintenance stages. So we can see that it's actually quite beneficial for both parties, and also, of course, for the public or the citizen as well. And I think that's for the green project requirement criteria. And the end of my presentation, Ibu Tanti.
Yes, thank you, Rizka. So on this matter, maybe I will as to the discussion first, yeah, before I open question for participant. I would like to ask Ms. Leong first that what Rizka said in the presentation, the last presentation, what needs to be done in the preparation stage to develop robust financial structure? That's the first question for Ms. Leong. And secondly is what approach to enhance close engagement with green financiers, as well as to enhance the change for project to get the financing. Okay, Ms. Leong, the time is yours, please. Ms. Leong, can you hear us?
Sure, thank you very much.
Okay, then.
Yes, I can, except that there was a lag, for your last two questions. I think there's something wrong with the connection.
Okay, I will repeat again the question, yeah. The first is what needs to be done in the preparation stage to develop robust financial structure. And secondly is what approach to enhance close engagement with green financiers, as well as to enhance the chance for project to get the financing. Your time, Ms. Leong. Okay. Okay, then. Okay, so maybe because there's a technical difficulties.
I shall make an attempt. Okay. I think, if I shall make an attempt in here.
Okay, please.
Okay. I think you're asking, I think first and foremost, I must clarify. I think Indonesia is an absolutely interesting market for CDPQ, but we're still relatively new for this market, so we're learning. And, we've always wanted, to work with the the MDBs, because I see the MDBs as being very experienced, particularly in the developing markets and frontier markets. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, the way CDPQ looks at investment, whether it's in infrastructure or any other of our asset classes, we try our utmost to balance returns as well as ESG. So it's never one over the other. So that is critical. So all of the returns, it's basically against, a risk reward that we look at. And a lot of it has got to do with the contractual agreement, the certainty of the cash flow, as an example. So those are very critical factors which tend to differ, project to project. Lastly, I think the quality of the sponsor, the quality of the strategic partner that's involved in the project is critical. So we tend to, because we can't be everywhere for every one of our investment. So we tend to want to work with local strategics who know the local nuances, who know the local culture, who know the local network, in order for the project to work. So, and to help us navigate the regulations, to help us navigate all of the supply chain, as well as most of these infrastructure projects, they tend to be 20, 30 years. So we do need, very strong local knowledge as partnership. So those are some of the criteria that we look out for whenever we invest. I hope I've answered that question.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Leong. So now heading to the expert's view, I think I would like to ask Mr. Dak several questions. Mr. Dak, how crucial it is nowadays for sustainability and resiliency to be taken into account in transport sector in general? And the second question is, are there any specific transport sector that can promote higher change of promoting sustainable and resilient quality infrastructure. And the last is, what are the potential challenges being faced in operation and maintenance stage of a project that is prepared to more sustainable and resilient? So can you explain about those three questions, Mr. Das? Thank you.
Yes, I can. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me to Indonesia PPP Day, and greetings from Johannesburg. I have been privileged to work with colleagues at the World Bank and the Ministry of Finance in Indonesia for 10 years now. And before I tackle the specific question on inclusion of ESG, I just want to compliment the Ministry of Finance and the government of Indonesia in general about the hard work and the real growth in the quality of the PPP projects and the project pipeline that we've all seen. I think this Indonesia PPP Day and the quality of the projects that we're seeing shows that this 10 years of hard work has paid off. I was reading somewhere that there's something like $13 billion of investment in Indonesia through PPPs in the last 4 years. I think you are the envy of the world, so well done on that. But at the same time, in these 10 years, I think the investment environment has changed quite a bit. And it is going to be very, very hard to get investors to come to a project that isn't prepared very well and in accordance with all of these sound ESG principles. And because we're talking about the transport sector, it's got to be about a big focus on the E part of it, the environmental impact. My background, I'm the CEO of a PPP company that runs an urban rail project. Now, we are in our 12th year of operations, and I'm telling you that the ESG principles are as important today as they were on the day that we dug the very first bit for construction. We have to measure our carbon footprint every month. We've got to be making continual improvements on the way that we impact on the environment. And a small example would be we're in year 10 of operations and we then start greening up our stations. Why did we wait 10 years? And the lesson learned here is maybe we didn't incorporate enough in our project about the long-term impact of our project. So again, what I see about Singkawang Airport is the project preparation team is thinking about these things. And I think that must be recognized and well done to the team on doing that. Now, I come from the rail background, so please don't ask me which is the most important sector. I will be in trouble with my airport colleagues. But I would like to make the point that integrated transport planning is so important. When you're looking at the airport, how are people going to get to the airport? Is it supported by a green public transport solution? Because if you're asking people to drive there in their cars or in diesel-powered buses, all of the benefits which you get from a green airport could be lost. So please think about this from an integrated transport point of view. The final point which I'd like to make when you talk about the O&M, the operations and maintenance stage of the project, is to remember that these PPP projects, these concessions, are very long. By the time that you get to year 10 or year 15, technology has changed. There could be green solutions that we are not aware of now. So the challenge from a sustainability point of view is to be creating a project that can accommodate change over time. It's very difficult to do. I'll give you one example. As part of our train services, we also operate a bus fleet. And our PPP says that these buses must be replaced now. We did not envisage that there would be, for example, green energy solutions along the lines of hydrogen-powered buses, etc. So we should have been more innovative. We should have been more open to change and adaptation of technology, because the ESG principles are not about what you do just today. It's what you do over the next 20 and maybe even 30 years. I'll end my comments there. Thank you for the very interesting discussion.
Okay, thank you very much for the clear information, Mr. Duck. Ladies and gentlemen, in regards to what's been delivered just now, I would like to go back a little bit to Mr. Otto, as the Indonesian government. What are steps taken by Indonesian Ministry of Transportation in preparing to take part in a more sustainable and resilient infrastructure, especially in regard to airport sector?
Thank you, Ms. Tanti. Well, actually, this is a good opportunity for MOT to inform and share what have been done and where actually what we are planning and what we have done regarding to development of sustainable airports. As Bu Rizka already presented, actually we already have the regulation in place. Well, we are still completing some regulation which is try to adapt with all the changes. As Mr. Dak already mentioned, this is not just today, this is just about 25 or even 50 years. So we are adapting all the regulations, starting from the government regulation to the minister, even down to the Director General's decree. So again, we are preparing that just to complete all what they have done. To us, the airport or green airport, we have 4 items that our major components that apply to. One is the nature of environment itself. It includes the air, how we can conserve the air, land, and also waters. And to give an example, maybe this is not just applied to Singkawang, because Singkawang is still in the planning stage. What we have done, for example, what we have done in Banyuwangi airports. Banyuwangi airport, it's already in operations. We are doing to preserve the airs, more plantations planted in the airports, and we use less of the aircon so that the cold is from the plant itself. So this is an example of the first component of the how we conserve the natures. Second is about the new and renewable energy. We do understand that now we are all airports are rely on the to get the power from the power producers. Yes. But now the government is trying to encourage the the airports to also produce their own energy. Of course, the renewable energy. For example, this is in the still, well, it's not in the plan that this is about will be implemented in the Bali International Airport, in the Ngurah Rai Airport. You know that is just close to the airport, Bali Airport. There's a seaport, which has a facility of LNG facility, the storage and regasification facility. At that time, the government insists that the Bali should have more greener energy, so they replace the diesel fuel power plant to the gas to LNG fuel power plants. In relate to the airports, because it's very close by, you know that in the regasification process of LNG, there is a there is a cold excess produced by the LNG regasification. So we are planning to transfer this cold excess to the airport, so that the aircon used in the airport is not from the powers, but from the excess of cold from the regasification. So this is the examples of the second element of the try to use new and renewable energy. The third element is well, it's related to the second and first and second is we are trying to reduce, reuse, and recycles. Just to expand that, just the two examples that I mentioned earlier, this is all the concept that we are trying to do. The last is about the socials, how we empower the locals. And this is what we have done in a PPP project in Labuan Bajo, because in the commitment between the GCA and the PPP Co, we put there a clause that PPP Co must empower the locals by using their manpower, the locals, and also to involve them in the business side, in the commercial area. So there's a certain percentage that has to be complied with the PPKO to involve the commercial area, to give it to the locals. Of course, the PPKO have a responsibility also to train them so that they have a certain standard, because this is an airport for tourism. So again, these four elements, we are trying to do more in the airports will be developed, and also the airports already in operations.
Okay, thank you, Pak Otto. It's very interesting, yeah. So move on to Ms. Rizka. What do you think would be the challenges in the policies implementation in this specific project and airport sector generally in Indonesia? So we already heard from Pak Otto, but what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Butanti. I'll make this short, but I think, as mentioned before, airport is quite complicated in terms of making sure it complies to the ESG requirements or ESG aspect of infrastructure development. And I think one of the things that are challenging as well is also regarding the stakeholder airport itself, includes airlines, which cannot be controlled by the government. Types of fleets that is being used in Indonesia are mostly not the most efficient one, but there are things that the government cannot control that much. And also, they are not also in control in the sources of utility of the power and water, as well as Pak Otto mentioned before. That's why I think the government has already taken to measures how to control that, with trying to enforce or support the airport operators with policies regarding renewable energy use and being a more independent airport, which can make and use their own energy, and also water. I think that's one of the things that airport can also use in terms of conserving or offsetting some of the footprints that are created by the specific sector. So also extending that, the control of operational activities, those are terms of the operational activities done in the airport, but also extending that to other aspects that the government can also control. For example, the use of a more environmentally friendly logistic means to support the operation of the airport itself. For example, for the fuel trucks would then be provided by trucks who are more environmental friendly, with biofuel, for example, or maybe the development of the surrounding location to consider sustainability, and also green businesses to be involved in the development of the surrounding areas of the airport. Because one of the things that why Singkawang is quite, committed to this project as well, as the city government, they have plans to develop the surrounding areas to make sure that it attracts more market in the business side and also tourist side, making sure that the airport itself, the city itself has what we call a pull factor for the market to visit and do business in. Okay. I think those are the things that the government can focus on and try to not eliminate, but try to reduce all the challenges in the airport sector.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been hearing the interesting views from our panelists and discussion. And so next, we are going to have the Q&A session. And I already have a question from the online participant right now. This is from Amina, and the question is addressed to Mr. William Dah. The question is, we currently facing a pandemic situation where demand for travel is decreasing in a significant manner. So how can GCA structure the project so that it can get financing from investor? Okay, Mr. Da, maybe you can answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a very good question. You know, one of the tests of a project is it resilient? And to me, there's never been a bigger test of transport projects than the last 2 years and this pandemic. So to me, there's a few things we have to do. Number one, we have to survive, right? Numbers are down across the board. Every country is seeing public transport, aviation, passenger numbers are down. Passenger revenue is down. The second, when I say and survive, there's got to be elements of government support. My project got increased government support. And I know when I talk to other CEOs around the country, they also were supported by government. They were supported by government because of the need for sustainable public transport. If we go back to private car use, energy inefficient modes, the long-term consequences will be very, very bad. But the next phase we've got to go to, and that's why this conference is so relevant, is how do we rebuild afterwards? And how do we keep investors interested? The one technical answer I can give is demand risk is going to be very difficult to transfer. I can't see many investors saying they're happy to take demand risk, but I think confidence will return over time. So maybe there's a role for government in terms of taking demand risk for 5 years or 7 years, and then looking to investors and saying, what is your risk appetite? But PPPs are not dead. Transport sector is not dead. We are resilient and we are sustainable because we are going to be the part that saves this planet from a climate catastrophe. The benefits of good public transport systems really will be one of the key elements of our sustainability as a planet. I truly believe that.
If I may add, I think the other thing which government or can do in a situation like that is that perhaps one of the way that is to extend the concession, the period of concession, so to maintain flexibility and to make it attractive for institutional investors like ourselves. So those are some of the things that we have looked at during these 2 years.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional comment from Taufik Wang, maybe?
Yes, I was just going to actually complement what William just said, which is there will be need of government support. So I think that the work that the government of Indonesia has been doing in preparing projects is really critical in selecting the projects that go forward. There is limited capacity, limited government support that can be extended. So selecting the right projects is critical. And to William's point on traffic risk, since we're talking about transport, we saw this back in 2008, 2009. I think it started in Australia's PPP market, a very hot market, where after the global financial crisis, the trying to push traffic risk to private investor became impossible, and was in more developed countries, Australia, Canada, the US, there were other mechanisms that came about. In Asia, we still lagged behind. We were still trying to push some of this traffic risk to the private sector. And if we look at the delivery on PPPs in urban transport or even in the road sector, our success rate has been still quite limited compared to when we look at structures of availability payment and others. So I think risk allocation, very important, but before even that, right project selection, critical from a government perspective.
Okay,
if I may add, Bu Tanti.
Yeah, please.
So well, I totally agree with Mr. Duck, because to be resilient, it has to be, well, it's not just the government support that we need.
Yes.
The PPP itself has to be more flexible. This is happening to all airports in the world, right? Well, we are now we are doing study. This is to prepare for, well, we don't hope, we're not hoping for others pandemic to happen, but we have to be prepared. Let's say if the demand risk, this is part of the government support, if demand risk during the pandemic temporary transfer to the governments, maybe the scheme can be a bit changed to what do you call KSO? What is KSO in Indonesia? Operational contract. So the PPP code during the crisis or during the pandemic, well, it's like automatic shifting to the operation contract. So the demand risk during that is burdened by the governments. When it pick up and the traffic reach to the level of before the crisis, it's transferred back to the PPP code, and it's applied the PPP contract again. So again, it's not just government support, that the PPP itself has to be more flexible, adjusting to the condition.
Okay, thank you, Pak Otto. Yes, Amina, hopefully that can answer your question. Yeah, there are another question from internet from Abindaru. I think this is addressed to Pak Otto. So the question is, it is an interesting project for Singkawang Airport as part of PPP project in Indonesia. However, as a foreign artist, how do we know that? I open my, okay. However, as a foreign artist, how do we know that this project is feasible and comfort us as investor? This is due to the fact Indonesia is a very huge country and it has tendency of centralized population in Java Island.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Well, the government now are planning to more have distributed populations by having this IKN relocating the capital city from Jakarta in the Java Island to Penajam, close to Penajam in East Kalimantan. This is part of the, but if the question from
this is from Abindaru.
From Abinda, how to convince the investors that this is a feasible project. As I mentioned earlier, we understand that airports, greenfield, particularly the greenfield airport, is very challenging. That's why in the beginning of the project, besides all the fiscal support provided either by MOF or by MOT, the governments, in this case MOT, will support in terms of non-fiscal support. The operations will be initially taken by the governments. Yes. So when it reaches to the scale of economic, it will be transferred to the PPP co. So this is one of the support that the government can provide. Others, like, of course, the government will review the traffic or the route management surrounding the airport, in this case in Singkawang. There is a Pontianak, and others airport in Kalimantan. We try to optimize and hopefully this beneficiary to the traffic of Singkawang. So this is others that the government's involvement to make sure that the demand will reach what the expectation from the investors.
Okay. Thank you for the answer, Pak Otto. Hopefully it will answer the question of Abindaru. Yeah. Thank you for the question. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, through all the discussion, I would like to deliver some highlights from our panelists and discussion. Number one, there are several approaches regarding sustainable and resilient quality infrastructure that can be used as guidance in preparing the project. Second, Indonesia is committed to promote sustainable and resilient quality infrastructure throughout its ministry. In this particular case, Ministry of Finance by facilitating the preparation and Ministry of Transportation by regulating the implementation in its sector. Thirdly, despite challenges in terms of controlling some aspects of the airport sector as a whole, there are still some parts that can be focused on to ensure the best possible way of preparing the project as a sustainable and resilient project. And the last is sustainable and resilient projects are the future and will need a holistic approach to ensure its progress by all stakeholders involved, be it the government, policymakers, investors, financiers, infrastructure experts, advisor, etc. So, okay, everyone, now we are arriving at the end of discussion today. But before I close the discussion, I would like to give time for the closing remarks from our panelists and discussion. Each person can give the closing remarks for 1 minute because we have a short period of time. So we will start from the panelists. Ms. Rizka, please.
Thank you, Ibu Tanti. 1 minute is quite long for me, so I'll make this short. But as you mentioned before, Indonesian government is committed to ensure the mission towards net zero carbon, and it's shown that this project that it can be implemented in various aspects of development sectors as well, including the transport sector. So from this project, there are ways for all of the sectors in the infrastructure development to contribute the set goal of net zero carbon that is being reached by the government and also globally. So also I like to mention in the near future with innovation and also development of new approaches is the challenges can be addressed more and more accordingly. So I think we need to be, as William said before, resilient and also adaptable to the changes in the future. And hopefully there are more and more ways to ensure a greener and also a sustainable and resilient transport sector, not just airport, but all of the connectivity type of project. That's for me, Ibu Tanti. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next for Pak Otto, please.
Thank you. Just a short statement. The government of Indonesia, in this case, MOK, is very committed, not just to attract investors, but also to comply with all the ESG principles, so that the infrastructure, particularly transport infrastructure in Indonesia, can be sustainable and also resilient. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Otto. And then the next is Ms. Taufik Wahab. Please, your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having us and having me. I would like to, for those of the investors or who are watching or attending the event, I would welcome them to come to Indonesia. The World Bank Group has been a long-time partner of Indonesia in the PPP space, in the infrastructure space. There have been a lot of developments. There are challenges, but there are challenges. We're talking about very large and complex projects. So there are challenges in all countries, but Indonesia does have the regulations, the institutions, and the parties involved, including the MDB community, ready to support on the preparation and on the financing and other risk mitigation that there may be necessary. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Leo, your closing remarks, please.
Thank you for having us as well. I think, CDPQ being a institutional investor, a pension fund, and if you look at us, we have got Canadian dollars 420 billion of AUM. And I think what is very interesting for me is that our positioning as a provider and investor of constructive capital. And I love the term constructive because we take this very, very seriously. And when we look at carbon, we look at the E side of the ESG. In addition, to being carbon neutral, in addition to measuring our carbon intensity by project, the other thing that we have done is that we have put aside a $10 billion pocket to finance transition. And personally, I think that's really exciting because I think if all of us are going to walk away with heavy carbon emission, I don't think we are walking down the right path. I don't think it's the only path. So $10 billion of a pocket, and we believe that we, together with a lot of our peers and a lot of our colleagues from the MDBs, if we put our minds together, I think we will be able to invest in technology. We will be able to invest in good companies, good partners who are committed to making the transition. That I think is very key. So hopefully, over the medium term, that we start to see some results from that.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Leong. Lastly, Mr. Duck, please, your closing remarks.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the last words. If I were to choose a project in the transport sector for Indonesia to bring to its PPP day, I would choose an airport. It makes complete sense to me as we emerge from hopefully we emerge from a COVID world. I think airports show financial sustainability far above the uncertainties of rail and other more complex projects. They're relatively simple. And sticking to the theme today, there's lots of scope for applying the ESG principles in a way that this can really be a fantastic pilot project. So well done to the team who prepared this project. Thank you for including me in the panel. And I really look forward to getting some good news when this goes out to market eventually. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to once again thanks the panelists and all discussants for the very interesting and enlightening session today, and to all audience for your active participation. Hopefully the discussion will be beneficial for all of us, and thank you for your kind attention, and let's give our big applause for our panelists and discussants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I return the floor to MC. Please, Aline.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, our moderator Tanti Hidayati, for the fruitful and engaging discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the two-day event of Indonesia Public-Private Partnership Day. This is the two-day event of Indonesia PPP Day 2021. We strongly hope that with the two-day event of Indonesia PPP Day, many insightful inputs and understandings can support Indonesia PPP scheme better ahead. We would like to thank all the invited guests and officials involved today. May we all have a pleasant day, stay healthy, and good news. See you.
Recording stopped.